Marcus stood frozen, the news anchor's voice droning on in the background. Whitmore dead. It was almost too good to be true. But Marcus wasn't naive enough to believe in coincidences. This was an act of desperation. This was a message. Angela clutched his arm. "Marcus, what do we do?" His mind raced. Whitmore had been a snake, but he wasn't the only one playing the game. Someone had just removed him from the board. But who? And why? Ghost called before Marcus could even process his thoughts. "Tell me you're watching this." "I'm watching." Ghost let out a low whistle. "Looks like someone just did your job for you." Marcus didn't respond. "King, you there?" "This wasn't my win, Ghost." His voice was tight. "Someone else is moving the pieces." Ghost exhaled. "You're not wrong. I've been digging. Whitmore wasn't the top of the food chain. There's someone bigger. Someone who wanted him gone before the walls caved in." Angela's breath hitched. "You mean?" Ghost's tone darkened. "Marcus, whoever did this just tied up a loose end. And if Whitmore was a loose end..." Marcus's grip on his phone tightened. "That means I am too." The next 24 hours were a whirlwind. Whitmore's suicide dominated headlines, but Marcus knew better. He kept moving, switching locations, staying off the grid. Angela remained by his side, but the weight of their situation pressed down on both of them. They weren't just exposing corruption anymore. They were entangled in something much bigger. That night, they holed up in an abandoned loft on the outskirts of town. Marcus barely closed his eyes, his instincts on high alert. Angela sat by the window, staring out into the darkness. "What if we're too deep?" she whispered. Marcus glanced at her. "We knew the risks." She turned to face him. "Marcus, someone just eliminated Whitmore. What do they come after us next?" He didn't have an answer. Instead, his phone vibrated again. A blocked number. He hesitated before answering. "Who is this?" A deep, unfamiliar voice responded. "You don't ask the questions, Marcus." Marcus's blood ran cold. "Who are you?" A chuckle. "A ghost. Like your friend." Marcus glanced at Angela. She was already on edge, watching him closely. "What do you want?" Marcus demanded. The voice was calm. Too calm to offer you a deal. Marcus's jaw clenched. "I don't make deals with cowards who hide in the shadows." The laugh that followed sent a shiver down his spine. "Coward? No. I'm the reason you're still breathing. But keep pushing and that changes." Marcus's grip on the phone tightened. "You killed Whitmore." A pause. Then, "Whitmore killed himself. And if you're smart, you'll do the same." Click. The line went dead. Angela stood. "Marcus, what did they say?" He looked at her, the weight of the moment settling in. "They want me to stop." Angela's expression hardened. "Are you going to?" Marcus's eyes darkened. "Not a chance." The next morning, Marcus made his move. He and Angela met Ghost in an underground parking lot. Tension thick in the air. "This is bigger than Whitmore," Marcus said, handing Ghost a burner phone. That was never the end game. Ghost scrolled for the messages Marcus had received. "You're in the lion's den now, King." Marcus exhaled. "I need to know who's pulling the strings." Ghost rubbed his chin. "There's one person who might have the answers." Angela frowned. "Who?" Ghost hesitated. "Whitmore's fixer." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "You know where to find him?" Ghost nodded. "But he won't talk. Not willingly." Marcus cracked his knuckles. "Then we make him." They found the fixer in an upscale club downtown, drowning in overpriced whiskey and bad decisions. A man like him was always surrounded by security, but Marcus wasn't there to ask nicely. With precision, Marcus and Ghost infiltrated the VIP section. Within moments, they had the fixer cornered in a private room. Angela stood watch as Ghost locked the door behind them. The fixer, a greasy man in a tailored suit, sneered at Marcus. "I was wondering when you come knocking." Marcus didn't waste time. He grabbed the man by the collar and slammed him into the wall. "Who ordered Whitmore's hit?" The fixer smirked. "You think I'm afraid of you?" Marcus leaned in. "No, but you should be." The fixer chuckled, shaking his head. "You're in over your head, king. You don't even know what you're up against. Marcus pressed harder. Then enlighten me. The fixer's smile faded. You ever hear the council? Ghost stiffened. Hell no. Marcus shot him a look. What? Ghost exhaled. The council isn't just some shadowy group. They run everything. Politics, banks, law enforcement, you name it. Marcus turned back to the fixer. And they wanted Whitmore gone? The fixer's lips curled into a grin. Whitmore got sloppy. He thought he was untouchable. The council reminded him that no one is. Marcus's stomach tightened. And me? The fixer tilted his head. You? You've made yourself a problem. But there's still a way out. Marcus scowled. What way? The fixer leaned in, voice dripping with amusement. Join them. The room fell silent. Angela's eyes widened. What? The fixer shrugged. You think the council eliminates everyone who causes a problem? No. They absorb the strong, the smart, the ones who prove themselves. Marcus's mind raced. And if I refuse? The fixer smirked. Then you die. Before Marcus could respond, a loud bang shattered the moment. The door exploded inward. Armed men swarmed the room. Angela screamed. Ghost reached for his gun. Marcus barely had time to react before a rifle, but cracked against his skull, sending him to the floor. The last thing he saw was the fixer grinning down at him. Welcome to the big leagues, King. Darkness consumed him. That was the first thing Marcus felt as consciousness returned. A dull, throbbing ache in the back of his skull. His vision swam as he forced his eyes open, blinking against the harsh fluorescent light above him. His hands were tied. His ankles, too. A chair beneath him, metal and cold. His head lolled forward, but the moment he moved, sharp pain shot through his temple. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself to focus. Where was he? His surroundings slowly came into focus. A large, empty warehouse. Industrial, dimly lit. Concrete floors, steel beams stretching toward the ceiling. A single door on the far side of the room. And standing in front of him, the fixer. Rise and shine, King. Marcus exhaled sharply, his jaw tightening. Where's Angela? The fixer chuckled, rolling his shoulders. She's safe. For now. Marcus blood boiled. If you hurt her, you'll do what exactly? The fixer smirked, pulling up a chair and sitting across from him. You're not in a position to make threats. Marcus flexed his fingers, testing the restraints. Tight. Professional. They knew what they were doing. The fixer leaned forward. We gave you an offer. A way out. You ignored it. Now, I'm going to ask you again. He gestured around them. You're at a crossroads, Marcus. The council doesn't like loose ends. Marcus steadied his breathing. I don't work for cowards. The fixer laughed. Cowards? Marcus, you don't even know who you're fighting. The council has been running things for decades. You think you're special? You think you're the first one to try and break the system. Marcus held his gaze. I think I'm the first one who's going to succeed. The fixer sighed, shaking his head. That's what I was afraid of. A door creaked open behind him. Heavy footsteps echoed in the warehouse. Marcus didn't look, but he felt a shift in energy. The fixer leaned back, smirking as a figure stepped into view. A man, late 50s, sharp suit, salt and pepper hair. But it was his eyes that sent a chill down Marcus' spine, calculating, cold, powerful. The fixer stood. Marcus, meet Mr. Caldwell. Caldwell studied Marcus, then spoke. You're making this difficult. Marcus clenched his jaw. That's the point. Caldwell chuckled, stepping closer. Do you know how many men have sat where you're sitting right now? Brave men, smart men, men who thought they could change the world. Marcus didn't respond. Caldwell tilted his head. Do you know where they are now? Marcus already knew the answer. Caldwell nodded. Gone. Forgotten. Buried under the weight of their own ambition. Marcus met his gaze. Then I guess I'll be the first one to break the cycle. Caldwell's smile didn't reach his eyes. You could be useful to us, Marcus. The council needs men like you, strategic, fearless, determined. But there's one thing we don't tolerate. Marcus knew what was coming. Defiance. A fist collided with his ribs. Marcus grunted, the impact forcing the air from his lungs. He hunched over, pain radiating through his chest. Another punch, this time to his side. A third to his face. He tasted blood. Caldwell sighed. This is disappointing. The fixer cracked his knuckles. Give the word, boss. I'll make sure he disappears. Caldwell studied Marcus for a moment, then shook his head. Not yet. The fixer frowned. You sure? He's a liability. Caldwell smirked. He's an investment. Marcus spat blood onto the floor. I'm not for sale. Caldwell chuckled. We'll see. He turned to leave, but paused at the door. One last chance, Marcus. Join us, or watch everything you love burn. Marcus exhaled slowly. Go to hell. Caldwell's eyes darkened. Very well. With a nod, he signaled to his men. The fixer stepped forward, pulling something from his jacket. A phone. He tapped the screen and turned it toward Marcus. A video feed appeared. Angela, bound, gagged, tears in her eyes. Marcus' blood ran cold. The fixer smirked. Like Caldwell said, watch everything you love burn. The screen went black. Marcus roared, straining against his restraints. Fury igniting inside him like wildfire. If you touch her, I swear. The fixer grinned. You're not in control here, King. Marcus' chest heaved. His mind raced. He needed a way out. Now, the fixer patted his shoulder. You have 24 hours to reconsider. Then they left him alone. Marcus sat in silence, breathing heavily. Blood trickled down his lip. His hands throbbed from where the rope bit into his skin. His ribs ached. But his mind was sharp. 24 hours. That's all he had. And then Angela would die. Unless he closed his eyes, forcing himself to think. The fixer had been cocky, arrogant, sloppy. The knot around his wrists, it wasn't perfect. Loose enough that if he twisted just right, he gritted his teeth, straining against the rope, using every ounce of strength he had left. Pain flared through his muscles, but he pushed through it, twisting, pulling, breaking free. The rope gave way. His hands free. He moved fast, untying his ankles, ignoring the screaming pain in his ribs. He had no time to recover, no time to waste. Angela's life depended on it. Marcus rose to his feet, scanning the warehouse. The guards were gone, for now, but they wouldn't stay gone for long. He needed a weapon, a way out, a plan, because in 24 hours, they were coming for Angela, and Marcus wasn't going to let them take her, not without a fight. Marcus' breath came in short, sharp bursts as he shook the last remnants of the rope from his wrists. His fingers were raw, the skin chafed and burning, but he didn't have time to dwell on the pain. Every second counted. Angela's life depended on it. He scanned the warehouse. The metal walls were bare, and the only exit was a steel door Caldwell and his men had disappeared through. A single dim light flickered above, casting long shadows against the concrete floor. He needed a plan, and fast. His mind raced through possibilities. If he charged through the door now, he'd be gunned down instantly. The council didn't leave loose ends. He had to be smarter, more calculated. Then he saw it, a rusted metal pipe lie in the corner. It wasn't much, but it was something. He grabbed it, testing its weight in his hands. He crept toward the door, pressing his ear against the cold steel. Muffled voices. At least 2 guards stationed outside. Maybe more. His body tensed as he gripped the pipe tighter. He only had one shot at this. Taking a deep breath, he counted down in his head. 3, 2, 1. He slammed his foot against the door, sending it flying open. The first guard barely had time to react before Marcus swung the pipe, connecting with his jaw. The crack echoed to the empty corridor as the man crumpled to the ground, unconscious. The second guard scrambled for his gun, but Marcus was faster. He lunged, driving his shoulder into the man's chest, sending him crashing against the wall. The gun clattered to the floor. Marcus wasted no time. He grabbed the weapon and took a step back, aiming at the guard. "Where is she?" he demanded. The guard coughed, groaning as he struggled to sit up. "You're making a mistake." Marcus pressed the barrel of the gun against the man's forehead. "Where is she?" The guard hesitated. Then, through gritted teeth, he muttered, "They took her to the old factory, south side of the city." Marcus didn't blink. "How many men?" "More than you can handle," the guard sneered. Marcus tightened his grip on the trigger. "I'll take my chances." With a sharp strike to the head, the guard was out cold. Marcus exhaled, his heart pounding in his chest. He couldn't afford to waste any more time. He checked the gun, fully loaded. Good. He grabbed the second guard's spare magazine and slipped it into his pocket before sprinting down the corridor. He burst out into the night. The cold air hit his face as he scanned the area. The warehouse was on the outskirts of town, surrounded by abandoned lots and broken-down buildings. He spotted a black SUV parked near the gate. The keys were still in the ignition. Rookie mistake. He slid into the driver's seat, slamming the door shut. The engine roared to life, and he sped off into the night. The old factory, south side of the city. He knew the place. An abandoned textile mill, shut down years ago. If Caldwell's men were keeping Angela there, it meant one thing. They were planning to make her disappear. His grip tightened around the wheel. Not on his watch. The factory loomed in the distance, its towering smokestacks cutting through the dark sky. Marcus killed the headlights as he approached, parking a block away. He couldn't risk drawing attention. He checked the gun again, inhaling deeply. This was it. He moved silently through the shadows, his eyes scanning for patrols. 2 guards stood at the main entrance, both armed. Getting through the front was suicide. He circled around the back, spotting a rusted fire escape leading to the second floor. Perfect. He climbed quickly, his movements precise. The old metal groaned under his weight, but it held. He reached the second-floor window and peered inside. The room was empty. With a careful push, the glass creaked open, and he slipped inside. The factory was eerily quiet. Too quiet. Then he heard it, a muffled cry. Angela. His pulse spiked as he moved through the shadows, following the sound. He reached a metal walkway overlooking the main floor. Below, a group of men stood in a circle, and in the center, Angela. Her hands were tied behind her back, her face bruised, her eyes filled with fear. Caldwell stood in front of her, speaking in a low voice. Marcus strained to hear. "You should have told your little boyfriend to take the deal," Caldwell murmured, running a hand through his silver hair. "Now we have a problem." Angela glared at him, defiance burning in her eyes. "Marcus will come for me." Caldwell chuckled. "I'm counting on it." A chill ran down Marcus' spine. It was a trap. Caldwell knew he was coming. Marcus took a step back, his mind racing. He had the element of surprise. But for how long? Then he saw it. A red light. A sniper. Positioned on the opposite walkway. Rifle trained directly on him. Marcus froze. The sniper's finger twitched on the trigger. And then, the gunshot echoed through the factory. Everything went black. The gunshot shattered the silence. Marcus felt the heat of the bullet as it whizzed past his face, missing him by mere inches. Instinct kicked in. He dove to the side, rolling behind a stack of rusted crates as another shot rang out, sparks flying as the bullet ricocheted off the metal. His heart pounded in his chest. That sniper wasn't playing games. One wrong move, and it was over. From below, Caldwell's voice cut through the chaos, calm and calculating. "You think I didn't know you'd come, Marcus? I counted on it." Angela's muffled cries reached his ears. He had to move fast. Marcus peeked out from behind the crate, assessing his options. The sniper had a clear vantage point from the opposite walkway. Engaging him head-on was suicide. He needed a distraction. His eyes landed on an old rusted pipe running along the ceiling. It hung loosely, supported by a single corroded bracket. An idea sparked. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out a small chunk of broken concrete. With precise aim, he hurled it at the bracket. Crack! The weakened metal gave way, and the pipe came crashing down with a deafening clang, sending dust and debris flying. The sniper flinched, momentarily distracted. That was all Marcus needed. He sprang forward, raising his gun. 2 quick shots. The sniper collapsed, his rifle clattering against the walkway. Marcus didn't waste time celebrating. He had bigger problems. Caldwell's men were now fully alert, scrambling into position. Below, Caldwell let out a slow, deliberate clap. Impressive, but you're still outnumbered. Marcus scanned the room. 5 men, all armed. He was good, but not bulletproof. He needed to be smart. A loud groan filled the air as the old factory structure shifted from the impact of the fallen pipe. Dust rained from the ceiling. The place was barely standing. A plan formed in Marcus' mind. Risky, but it was all he had. He spotted a rusted support beam holding up part of the ceiling. If he could weaken it just enough, his grip tightened on the gun. He took a deep breath and fired 3 shots directly at the beam. The factory groaned louder this time. The metal whined as the structure gave way, sending another massive section of the ceiling collapsing to the ground. Panic erupted below. Caldwell's men dove for cover as rubble crashed down, splitting the room in half with a cloud of dust and debris. Marcus used the chaos to his advantage, leaping over the railing and landing hard on the factory floor. Pain jolted up his leg, but he pushed through it. Angela was just a few feet away. Caldwell, now covered in dust, emerged from the wreckage, his face twisted in fury. You just don't know when to quit, do you? Marcus ignored him, racing toward Angela. He knelt beside her, quickly untying her wrists. Her teary eyes met his. You came for me? Always. She didn't get a chance to respond. A metallic click echoed in the air. Marcus turned just in time to see Caldwell pointing a pistol at them. This is where it ends. Caldwell snarled. Marcus shielded Angela with his body, bracing for the shot. Bang! But it wasn't Caldwell who fired. His eyes widened as he stumbled backward, blood seeping through his expensive suit. He gasped, turning his head slowly. One of his own men stood behind him, gun still smoking. Caldwell's face contorted in betrayal. W what? The man stepped forward, his voice eerily calm. You think we didn't see this coming, Caldwell? You think we let you take us all down with you? Caldwell collapsed to his knees, coughing up blood. His fingers trembled as he clutched his wound. Marcus watched, stunned. Even his enemies turned against him. Caldwell's head tilted back as he let out a bitter, wheezing laugh. You really think this is over? Then, with the last of his strength, he reached into his jacket and pressed a small button on a hidden remote. Marcus' stomach dropped. A sudden beeping noise filled the air. Angela's eyes widened in horror. Marcus, that sound... Marcus grabbed her hand, yanking her up. Run. But before they could move, an explosion ripped through the factory. The world turned into fire and chaos. Everything went black. For a moment, there was nothing but the ringing in Marcus' ears. A thick haze of smoke filled the air, and the sharp scent of burning metal stung his nose. His body felt weightless, like he was floating between reality and the unknown. Then, pain. A deep, aching pain that shot through his body, pulling him back to consciousness. He groaned, forcing his eyes open. Rubble surrounded him. The remnants of the factory lay in ruins, flames flickering in the distance. Angela. Panic surged through him as he pushed himself up, ignoring the searing pain in his ribs. He had to find her. He had to. Marcus. His head snapped toward the weak voice. Angela was just a few feet away, half buried under a wooden beam. Blood streaked her forehead, but she was alive. Relief crashed over him. I got you, he rasped, crawling to her. He gritted his teeth as he gripped the beam and, with every ounce of strength left in his body, pushed it aside. Angela gasped as she sat up, coughing violently. Marcus pulled her into his arms, holding her close. We made it, she whispered, tears mixing with the soot on her face. But the danger wasn't over yet. Caldwell. Marcus turned his head sharply, scanning the wreckage. The old man was nowhere to be seen. Angela followed his gaze. Do you think he? A slow, agonized groan answered her question. Marcus spotted movement near a collapsed section of the wall. Caldwell lay on his back, his once impeccable suit torn and bloodied. His breathing was labored, and his hand trembled as he tried to reach for something in his pocket. Marcus stood, stepping toward him. He wasn't taking any chances. With a swift motion, he kicked Caldwell's hand away, sending the small remote he was clutching skidding across the debris. Caldwell coughed, his laugh weak and bitter. "You think you won?" Marcus knelt beside him, his expression unreadable. "I don't think, Caldwell. I know." Caldwell's lips curled into a weak sneer. You'll never be one of them." Marcus' jaw tightened. "I don't need to be." Caldwell wheezed. "All this over a little power play?" Marcus let out a humorless chuckle. This was never about power. It was about respect. Something you never gave. Caldwell's eyes flickered, realization sinking in. Who are you really?" Marcus leaned in, his voice low but steady. "I'm the man you laughed at. The man you tried to humiliate. The man you thought was beneath you." He let the words sink in before delivering the final blow. "And I own the bank." Caldwell's breath hitched. His eyes widened in horror as the weight of those words crushed him. Marcus stood tall, looking down at the man who had spent his life controlling others, only to be left powerless in the end. "You lost, Caldwell." The old man let out one final, shaky breath before his head lolled to the side. His reign was over. Angela came up beside Marcus, gripping his hand. "It's really over, isn't it?" Marcus exhaled slowly, squeezing her fingers. "Yeah, it is." The sound of sirens echoed in the distance. The authorities would be here soon. Marcus had proof, bank records, illegal dealings, everything he needed to expose Caldwell and the corrupt elite who backed him. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. Angela looked up at him with admiration. "You did it, Marcus. You changed the game." He gave her a small smile. "No, Angela. We did." As the siren drew closer, Marcus turned to face the burning ruins one last time. He had walked into this war underestimated, dismissed, laughed at. But now, the world would know the truth. He wasn't just another black man trying to make it in a world designed to hold him back. He was the owner of the very institution that tried to break him. And that was the ultimate victory. What a journey from being laughed at owning the bank. Marcus' story is one of resilience, justice, and ultimate triumph. What did you think about this ending? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss more powerful stories like this. Thanks for watching, and remember, never underestimate the underdog.